Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most powerful and, well, controversial ideas in all of human history, something we all use every single day: reason. So, what is it really? Where did our idea of it come from, and where is it heading?
So let me just ask you something right off the bat. What is it that truly makes us human? What quality separates us from every other creature on this planet?
For thousands of years, the greatest minds in history had a really clear, confident answer to that question. It was our capacity for reason. This was it, the peak of our nature, the divine spark that made us who we are. But, and this is a big but, as we're about to find out, the story of reason isn't some simple, straight line of triumph. Oh no, it's a dramatic, twisting, and often messy history of a faculty that's been crowned a king, then demoted to a humble servant, and today is being questioned like never before.
Okay, so before we dive into that epic saga, let's just get on the same page. Let's start with a clear definition. What exactly is reason? At its absolute core, reason is our ability to consciously use logic to figure out what's true. I mean, think about it. It's that mental process that lets us see that if A leads to B and B leads to C, well then A must lead to C. It's how we make sense of literally everything, from why the toast burned to these huge, complex moral questions. All right, our story kicks off in ancient Greece, a time and place where reason wasn't just seen as a useful tool, it was considered something almost divine. You've probably seen this famous image by Goya before. It perfectly captures that classical Greek idea. The title says it all: the sleep of reason produces monsters. The message is that when our reason is asleep, when our fears, our appetites, our passions take the wheel, monsters emerge. For the Greeks, reason was the hero that had to ride in and tame all that inner chaos. And Plato, he took this idea and ran with it. He literally pictured reason as the rightful ruler, the natural monarch of your soul, whose job it was to command your emotions and your desires. In his view, reason was what connected our little messy human minds to the perfect, unchanging order of the entire cosmos. Pretty grand, right? Then came Plato's student, Aristotle, who defined a human being as a rational animal. For him, the best possible life, a life of what he called eudaimonia, or true, deep happiness, was a life guided completely by reason. So for the ancient Greeks, reason wasn't just a nifty trick, it was our ultimate purpose. Okay, now let's hit the fast-forward button and jump to the early modern period, because this is where that whole classical view gets completely turned on its head. This next chapter in our story is nothing short of an intellectual revolution. I mean, just look at this timeline. In a little over a century, from Descartes in 1641 to Kant in 1781, you have this handful of thinkers who just completely revolutionized how we understand reason. This whole period, what we call the Enlightenment, sparked this incredible explosion of new ideas that totally changed the course of Western thought. The whole framework just shifted. The old idea of reason being this connection to some grand cosmic order, that was out. In its place came what philosophers call subject-centered reason. Suddenly, reason wasn't out there in the universe, it was in here, inside each individual mind. And nobody, I mean nobody, captures this inward turn better than René Descartes. In his search for something he could be absolutely certain of, he doubted everything. His senses, the world around him, everything, except the fact that he was thinking. His own mind was the only solid ground he could find. Reason became a property of the self, the thinking thing. So this new focus on the individual mind kicked off this massive debate. On one side, you've got a guy like David Hume, who famously declared that reason is basically powerless on its own. It's just a slave to our passions, a calculator that helps us get what we already want. But then on the other side, you have Immanuel Kant, who argued that no, reason is powerful enough to establish universal moral laws for everyone, everywhere. A huge clash of ideas. Okay, so we've talked about what reason is and how its role has changed over time, but how does it actually, work? Let's take a quick peek inside the toolkit. Philosophers have generally broken down logical reasoning into three main forms. You've got deductive reasoning, which is like pure airtight logic. Then there's inductive reasoning, which is really the engine of all modern science. And finally, there's abductive reasoning, which is kind of like being a detective, piecing together clues to find the best explanation. So here's the most famous example of deductive reasoning ever, the syllogism. You start with a general rule: all humans are mortal. You add a specific fact. Socrates is a human. The conclusion that Socrates is mortal is logically unavoidable. If those first two statements are true, the conclusion has to be true. It's completely airtight. Now, inductive reasoning is a different beast. This is what powers all of science. We observe that the sun has risen in the east thousands of times, so we conclude that, yeah, it's going to rise in the east tomorrow. But, and this is the crucial difference, this conclusion is incredibly probable, but it's not 100% certain. Science deals in high probability, not absolute logical guarantees. And that brings us to the final act in our story, the modern era. And this is where the whole idea of a pure, universal reason, the hero of the Enlightenment, comes under some really intense fire. You know, in the last couple of centuries, thinkers have started asking some really tough questions. Is reason truly impartial? Or is it sometimes just a mask for power? Does its focus on logic make us ignore crucial parts of being human, like community, passion, or even gut feelings? And maybe the biggest question of all, is there really only one capital R reason? Or are there many different, equally valid ways of reasoning across different cultures? The philosopher Michel Foucault made this really powerful distinction. He talked about private reason. That's the kind you use when you're just a cog in a machine, right? You're an employee following the rules, a soldier following orders. But then there's public reason. This is the reason you use as a free citizen in a society. And Foucault argued that this kind of reason absolutely must be free, open, and subject to public debate. So as we've seen, our whole understanding of reason has been on this incredible journey. It started out as this divine monarch connecting us to the heavens. Then it became a revolutionary tool that put the individual at the center of the universe. And now it's seen as this powerful but maybe flawed human capacity that we are still trying to figure out. And that brings us right here to today with one final, and I think pretty provocative question. As we build machines, AIs, that can perform logical operations millions of times faster than our own brains, what happens to our unique capacity for reason? What's its purpose, its value? And what is its future in the age of artificial intelligence?